Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to make a voting for loot system in Fortnite Creative 1.0. And to start off, you're going to want to have some sort of starting area. I just built this small box and put a player spawner. Also, obviously, if you have like 10 players in your map, you're going to want to place 10 player spawners. And the only setting you're going to want to have in this is it should already be on, but use as island start. You want to make sure this is on for each player spawner. And then visible in game, you probably want to turn this off, otherwise you'll see this device when you're in game. But that's up to you. Now we're going to go ahead and go to what devices you're going to need. So for this tutorial, you're going to need a trigger, a timer device, a pop-up dialog device, a item granter, and then the new voting group and voting option devices. And then to start off, we're going to go to our trigger device, and you just want to go to the activate and game phase, and you want to turn this to game start, and that's all you're going to want to do so far. And then in our timer device, you want to go to the duration, and this is how long it's going to take for the voting to from start to end. So if you want it to be 20 seconds, you can put this 20 seconds. But for this tutorial, I'm going to have it as 15 seconds. And then we're going to go to start at game start, and we're going to put this to on. And the only reason you want to put this off is if you want your voting to be in the middle of the game. If you want it to be like 15 seconds into the game, then you want to do a timer just like this and have this start on game start in 15 seconds, and then on success start the new timer device, which will start this whole system. But I advise you just to do it how I'm doing, where it just does the vote right when the game starts. So anyway, continuing, we're going to go to timer name. That doesn't really matter. And then you can change it if you want. It's not going to really change anything. And then go to can interact. Put that to no. And then, as I said, keep start at game start on. And then you want to go to timer running text. You don't have to change this, but I'd suggest you to. I'm just going to change this to vote ends in. And then you also don't have to change this, but I'm just going to change this to large. So that's all you need to do for the timer device for now. And then next you want to go to the pop-up dialog device. And right here for the title, this is what it's going to say on the screen when it pops up. So I'm just going to say vote for loot. I'm just going to say vote for loot. And then I'm just going to have this as centered. And then do auto display. And you want to change this to game start. And then you want to do use dialog timeout. You want to turn this on. And you want to make this the same amount of time as your timer. So I'd put this to 15 seconds since I set my timer to 15 seconds. So just make sure that's the same as your timer. And then you want to go to response type, and this depends on how many loadouts you have. So for this tutorial, I'm just going to have 3 loadouts, but say you guys want to have 4 loadouts, you can do that. And you can have up to 6 loadouts, because that's the max amount of buttons you can have in this device. But as I said, I'm doing 3, and you guys can have it where you do like green, blue, purple, gold loot. But I'm just going to do it where I have Chapter 6 loot, Chapter 5 loot, and Chapter 4 loot. So we're going to have 3 buttons, and then change this default back button to none. And then, as you see, we have 3 texts here. And you also want to change this to how it is. So say like you're doing, as I'm doing, Chapter 6 loot, Chapter 5 loot, and Chapter 4 loot. You change this to Chapter 6 loot, Chapter 5, and Chapter 4. So say you're doing blue, gold, and purple, then you do gold, purple, blue. So as I said, I'm doing Chapter 6, 5, and 4 loot. So we're going to put Chapter 6 loot here. And we're going to put chapter 5 loot here. And also, this is what they're actually going to press on to vote for the thing. So then this is going to be chapter 4 loot. So chapter 4 loot there, as you see. And then that's it for this section. And then we're going to get to the on responding later. And next we're going to go to our item granter. And we're going to go to enabled on game start at yes. And then receiving players, all players. And then we're going to go to grant all items. And then that's all you need to change. You can change some of this other stuff if you want audio, but you don't have to for this tutorial. So these are the only two settings that you have to change, as you see there. And then next we're going to go to the voting group device, and we're going to go to this, and you want to name this whatever you're going to name all of these. So say I'm just going to name this loot. So we're going to name that loot, and then you don't want to change anything else. And then you go begin vote when receiving from, and then you want to choose the trigger from earlier. And then do end vote when receiving from, and then you want to go to the timer and then on success. And then yeah, so that's all you need there. And now voting option. So this is where I was saying earlier. So here it says voting group, and I put it as loot. So if whatever that says, it has to be the same as this. So since voting group was loot, we also have to make this loot. Otherwise, it will not work. And then voting option text. So as you saw earlier, we made like option 1, say chapter 6 loot. So we're going to put this, and we're going to make this also say chapter 6 loot. And we're going to bring this item granter over, and basically, since we have 3 buttons, we're going to copy this, and we're going to copy this, and we're just going to duplicate it 3 times since we have 3 buttons. And then you want to change this one to chapter 5 loot, since I'm doing chapter 5 loot, and then change this one to say chapter 4 loot, since it's chapter 4 loot. And then now you want to drop your guns in to the actual device. So here we're going to grab our chapter 6 loot. And since this is our chapter 6 loot, we want to drop the chapter 6 loot in there. Also, you guys can, if you want, you can add ammo. You probably want to, because the guns don't start with a lot of ammo. So you can just drop however much ammo you want into these devices too. But yeah, and then we go over to our chapter 5 loot. And then you want to drop chapter 5 loot in here. And then you want to go to chapter 4 loot. And then you want to put this to the button right here where it says chapter 4 loot. Okay, now after that, you want to go to your voting option devices, and we want to go here, and then we want to go to the cast vote when receiving from, and then we want to choose our pop-up dialog device, and then you want to choose number on responding number 1, and you want to make sure it's the same, because for this one, as you see, chapter 6 loot is the name of my first thing here. And when you go to your pop-up device, your first button text should be the same as that one, so chapter 6 loot. And then we go to our second one here, and we want to do cast vote when receiving from, pop-up dialog device, and then on responding button 2. And then on this one, we want to do cast vote, pop-up dialog device, on button 3. Okay, and after you do that, as I said earlier, you can duplicate more and more of these up to 6 buttons, but you just have to change this to button 6 if you're on number 6 and change all those or whatever. And then the last thing you're going to want to do before the whole thing is ready, you want to do grant item, and then you want to do grant item when receiving from your voting option device, and make sure it's the one that's next to it. So since this is the voting option and this is item granter, so it's just normal, we're going to do on vote completed winner, item granter, and then grant item. So now, once basically this is voted as winner, it will grant this loot. And then for this one, this is option 2, and this is item granter 2. So we go on completed winner, item granter 2, grant item. And since this is option 3, and this is item granter 3, I want to go to on completed winner, granter 3, and then grant item. So basically, that's it for all the settings you have to do. We're gonna go ahead and show you how this works. And so yeah, this game is gonna start in a few seconds. And as you see, it says vote for loot. And since I'm the only one in this game, it's just gonna automatically choose what I choose. But say you have more people in your map, if 5 people choose chapter 6 loot, then it'll do that, or whatever the majority is. So I chose chapter 5 loot. So as you saw, we get chapter 5 loot here. And we'll go ahead and start the game again to show you another one. Now we're in another one. We're going to choose chapter 6 loot, and then we're going to wait for the timer to end. And yeah, as I said earlier, obviously whichever one gets the most votes is going to be the one that grants you the loot. So I voted for chapter 6 loot, and as you see, we get chapter 6 loot. But yeah, that was it for this video. Let me know if that helped, and let me know if you want me to do a voting for map where it teleports you to the map and anything like that. Otherwise, let me know down in the comments if you want to see more Fortnite tutorials and creative, and hopefully you guys enjoyed, and see you guys in the next one. Peace.